In this video, I'm going to show you my workflow when I'm working with the model cycles only. Even though I love to work with it in combination with other instruments, sometimes everything I need is in this little box. And now all I need to do is get it into my DAW so that I can finish off the production. Ready, set, let's go. Hey everybody, Skydeep here. And yeah, like I said in this video, I'm going to work just with the model cycles and getting it into Ableton. Now, since Ableton Push 2 is just a controller for Ableton, I will be sometimes using that to maybe launch clips or start and stop play and things like that. The reason I felt it was important to make this video was because the workflow with the model cycles can sometimes be a little bit frustrating since it only has 2 outputs. That's it. So you have 6 tracks and you have 2 outputs. And, you know, what if you want to record all the automations? Like when I hold down the track button and turn any of these other parameters, it completely alters the life of every single sound that is playing. It's really hard to capture that when you have to record each track individually into whichever DAW you might be using. So I'm just going to show you my technique for how I still feel like I can capture the character of this amazing little box. But first, a word from our sponsor. That would be me. I don't ask for much. I love to give, but at the same time, a sister got work to do. I would love it if you would just visit my website, which is linked in the description. I've got t-shirts. I'm a multimedia artist. I'm working on apps in the VR world. But yeah, there's t-shirts, there's hats. Let's see. I've got my Skydeep hat right here. You know, was Skydeep threads. So I got all of that just waiting for you to take a look and see if there's anything that you're into. And if anything, just feel free to write me if you have further questions or whatever. I do offer like a coaching program and things like that, but it's really on a case-by-case basis because I really am up to quite a lot in my projects. But with that in mind, let's just get back into the video. Follow me. First, let me tell you how I have everything hooked up here for this workflow. Normally, I am just trying to have all my gear connected so that when I walk in the studio, I just flip the switch and, you know, the power's on and I can jam on whatever I feel like jamming on at that time. So this is why I really like to work with just the audio connection into the system because maybe I'm not always using my computer. But otherwise, with the USB connection now, I'm only recording into Logic just so we capture it there. But inside of Ableton, I am recording from the audio inputs on the interface. My interface is extended through an ADAT connection to the Behringer Ultra Gain Digital, where I have it's in inputs 9 and 10. Right. So now I want you to take a look at my Ableton session in which I actually created a template system that I work with so that every time I open Ableton, I have the same arrangement of tracks. This is set up so that I can always be ready to record something into the system. Maybe I want to, you know, do something in the Machina software, or maybe I want to do something in Ableton and then make a sample and then send it into the MPC. So I'm trying to create this ecosystem with my equipment where everything can be used at any moment. Likewise, when I'm ready to start tracking and putting it into the program so that I can start mixing, I want it to be easy. So I created a template. Today, I'm only going to focus on the model cycles, but I just wanted to explain what we're looking at here. So if we're just looking at getting the audio into the system, when I press play on the push, which is essentially pressing play on Ableton, you hear the track. Now I'm going to turn that volume down from here. Now it's much lower. There's another reason why I choose to work with the volume like that here. If you notice, if you look at this logic window where I'm getting some audio in, and if I play some audio, you notice how it's peaking there? It's no matter what, I can turn this volume all the way down so that I hear nothing in my ears. There's no sound happening at all going into Ableton because I have this volume all the way down. But you see, over USB, it's still at the maximum peak audio there. Now, I can turn this in, and now you can see the audio happening there in Ableton. So, on one hand, it's very possible, yes, that if that's what it shows on the USB output, that would mean that at all times when I'm jamming on the Model Cycles, my signal is peaking or distorted, extra distorted, beyond what I wish for. Now, this track in particular, the way that I made it is meant to be distorted. It's meant to be glitchy and scratchy. But there have been plenty of other way chill tracks that I've done where no matter what, on the USB connection, it's always peaking. And the only way for me to get around that is to turn the volumes on each and every of the 6 tracks all the way down. Now, as I was reading the manual, I learned that the volume parameter on the Model Cycles, once you pass 50%, goes into an intentional distortion. So what that means is that if I turn it down below a certain threshold, it's going to actually change the character of the sound. I don't want that. If I'm going for grit and I want to turn that distortion on, I want it to be fully there. And naturally, if it starts to sound distorted or something, I'll pull back. But in this case, that's another reason why I just kind of prefer to deal with the volumes directly. That's just my preference. I feel like I have more control. I can see it. Whereas no matter how many times I turn this volume switch, I can't change it on the USB output. Anyway, you've already seen the jam. If you haven't seen the jam, then go check this link right up there and you'll be able to see it and then come back to me. But here we're going to kind of just break it down. So a moment ago, I had all of the tracks running at the same time, but now I've muted everything except for track 1. Now I'm going to turn the volume up so I can hear it better, but you can hear it just fine. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch the logic input to the same, like an audio input, just like I have going into Ableton, because I do think it's pretty important that you can hear me change the levels. So bear with me one moment. All right, so now I want to record my track. So the idea behind this is, first I record it exactly as is, as I have it programmed in the Model Cycles. But first, I am going to do hold down the funk button, and I am going to do a temporary save by hitting the wrench there, because I always want to be able to reset my settings back to original. I have here enabled the Ableton recording function, and we're just going to test things out. I'm going to press push. Great, that's working. So now I'm going to record. Like I said, I did not put the fixed length function on because I'm going to edit the clip later and decide how long I want it to be. So here we go. Let's make sure the volume is nice and loud first. Yeah, okay, here we go. So it's already completed the round, but I'm going to go one more time. Now I just did what I didn't intend on doing, which is I stopped the playback of the model cycles before I was able to get that ending tail. Try this one more time. So 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There, we got it. Okay, it took me a minute, but that's because I'm trying to talk to you and trying to do my thing at the same time. All right, so we got that one in. I'm only going to keep that last one in the end, but for now, for sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and label that the bass kick, because that's like the original. But now I'm going to make some changes, and I'm going to hit the function key and the wrench to temporarily save exact settings of how this is so I can always recall it later. And now I'm going to, on this track, making sure it's selected, I'm going to turn all the way down off the reverb, and I'm going to turn all the way down the delay. And in doing that, let's see what that sounds like. Let me actually stop the clip in Ableton so we don't hear double. So it still rings out, but I took off the delay so that there's no delay on it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play it, and I'm just going to jam on the kick a little bit for fun. See how that goes. So. Now I'm going to recall it back to its normal state, which is, yeah, reload. Now we're back to normal, but I'm going to do something else to it. Let's see what happens. Making some changes. Send it back home where it goes. But I'm recording all of this. I love it. Now, this procedure that you just saw me do is something that I will do with each and every one of these tracks. So I'm just going to move right along, but first I'm going to make sure that I stop all the clips on Ableton so that it doesn't play on top. So like, for example, like right now, I'm going to mute the kick track. I'm going to unmute the track number 2, which is labeled as a snare. I'm also going to select the snare on the model cycles, and let's listen. So the reason we still actually hear the kick is because we're listening back to the kick that I just recorded. I know I said I was going to mute it, but I changed my mind. I'm leaving it on because I want to hear what these sound like together now. And in Ableton, I can watch the waveform and I can kind of see where some of these changes are. If I wanted this to help guide me, looking at the kick drum that I recorded, and I can kind of use that as a guide if I want to follow along with the snare and make changes around the same time. So that's something that I'm going to do. I'm going to keep listening to the first kick, and I'm going to play the snare on top. But first, I am just going to disengage the record from the kick and put it onto the snare. Now we can just record that. Let's see. and I'm going to let it ring out. Okay, so we got that in there, and now I get to play with it. All right, so that's track number 2 down. All right, and now I'm going to select my track number 3. I'm going to mute track number 2, but it's still going to be living in Ableton. So now I disengage the record function on track 2 within Ableton, and then I get track number 3 set up. And it's the same from there. And this is the workflow. This is how I do. This is how I do. So, all right, so let's do this again. Now I can stop these other ones if I want. It's still going, it's still recording. But now I'm gonna stop it. You hear that tail? I definitely want that recorded, and it's still recording there in Ableton. If you see this clip here, it's still recording. So stop that. Now, of course, I can do so much more with that. So I am going to make sure that everything is back. I just reloaded the pattern just to make sure I didn't change anything. And now I will start changing some things. So here we go on track 3. One more time. And now I take off all the effect, all the delay, and all the reverb. So that extra, okay, let's stop it. So that other little squealy sound that you hear in there, that's like a trig lock or a sound lock that I put in there on that track just to vary it. And that has an effect on it, but I leave that there. That's just part of the track, and that's how it is. That's how it is. But I can always make changes when I go back. So that's some stuff that I was doing there. What else? I can move on to the next track. Let's see if my cameras will continue to record as we go. And so now I am on track 4. Let's hear what that sounds like. Let's see. I'm gonna stop it in Ableton. What do I have going on here? Oh, there we go. Right. So that actually is kind of a different type of snare sound that I was trying to work with, the percussion sound. So, but yeah, let's get that in there. That has a lot of effect on it. Now, essentially, I don't have to stop and start again, but it's just how I choose to do. because I like to keep them separate so that I'm following a certain, like I'm already setting up my clips. So always the first clip I don't do anything to, and then on the second time around, I fiddle around. So let's do that. Not sure what's going to happen here. Maybe I just get rid of the reverb and delay. Let it go a few rounds. Okay, let's bring back the regular. Let's see what happens. Yeah, for me, that was good enough for that one. I probably won't do a ton with that. Going on, I mean, you get the picture, right? So I'll probably fast forward through part of this because the truth is actually there's a whole nother pattern that I have to get to. Okay, I'm not going to take you through the whole real-time session where I go through each individual clip, but I will give you a general idea of how I approach the clips. So for example, here we have our snare. If we look, I'm just going to change the color of these so that we can single them out a little bit. So in looking on the screen here at our snare, this would be the original. And so it's a 9-bar loop, let's say. I keep that. And so if I want to jam with that, I always have that. I do the same thing also with the kick. I make sure like that it's about the length that I'm going for. Like maybe it's not that one, maybe, oh, here it is. My one I'm calling the bass kick. I'm gonna change the color of that so that I'm aware. And I know I have this beautiful tail there if and when I need to end a phrase on the end of that. But for now, if I just wanna jam on these, I can, you know, in session mode here, I'm gonna take off the record so I don't make any mistakes. But right here on the push, I can just start that. I'm gonna mute. Okay. Right? So I can jam right here between the different clips as long as I make sure that I can stop the loop at the right place where everything works together. So here I can do the same. I could make it a 9, you know, everything that is a bass recording, I make as a 9-bar loop, or I can make it shorter. It does not, excuse me, 8 bars. It does not have to be 8 bars. It could be 4 bars. It could be 2 bars. I can chop it up. I can take this one where I made a bunch of changes to. Let's see. Let's play these two. Or there's just that one. Let's play that one. So in playing this, got a bit of noise there. Right? So now I'm actually going to play the second one where I made changes. And what I can do is I can zoom in here on Ableton. And I can make a note of where I started making changes. Yeah, so something like that, what I would do is I would say, for sure, I want to use that. I'm going to duplicate this track And I am going to move this starting point there. And then I would probably bring the ending point in here somewhere. Maybe I won't keep it as a loop because it has a very special thing going on with it. So I'll turn off the loop there in Ableton, and then I'll just designate where I want that sound to end, so that if I am playing, now I just switched over to the interesting version, and eventually it's going to end. Then I can put this in. And it's just going to keep going. Everything else is going to keep going. And I do the same thing if I have another pattern inside of the model cycles. I make more clip tracks in session view in Ableton. And from there, I start jamming in Ableton to finalize some type of arrangement. All right, so there you have it. How do you do it? What types of techniques are you using? I'm very curious. Maybe I'll try them out. Write it down in the comments. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, there's a lot more of that coming. I love doing this, and I'd rather show you what I'm actually doing every day. Anyway, this is just my way of bringing you along with me for the ride. So yeah, thanks for joining, and I'll see you on the next round.